Listen, if you're a business owner, you're a coach, consultant, expert, author, and you have not made $1 million selling your products or services through a webinar, then you want to listen to this podcast today. Okay? Because I'm going to share with you the top 5 mistakes that I made on my quest to creating $1 million webinar. Yes, we developed a webinar that actually did $1.2 million. And so we learned a lot along the way. Ton of mistakes, tons of trial and error, ton of money wasted over the years with various marketing companies that could essentially never help me to get it right. By the way, shout out to Kingdom Social Media. They've been my marketing team for several years. Shout out to David and his team because they collectively, collaboratively, we cracked the code. Okay, and so I'm just one that believes. Jesus told Peter that the enemy is trying to sift you like wheat, but I'm praying for you that you could remain strong. And when you get on the other side, go back and show your brother. And so I'm on the other side, and I'm like, why not come back and show my brother? So, by the way, for those of y'all that are just tuning in, welcome to the Believers in Business podcast. I'm your host, Brian Adamson. I know a lot of time, like we talk about being a believer in business, right? And seldom do we get into tactical conversations. And I still love, as much as I love the essence and I love the nuance and I love the strategy, there's also just some tactical, practical stuff that we got to do if we want to be successful at this thing called business. And so I just want to share with you some of my biggest mistakes. Many of you out there, if you haven't made $1 million leveraging webinars yet, keyword being yet, there's no reason why you shouldn't, right? Like, I think now, especially thanks to COVID, one of the good things that came out of it is so many people are now familiar with Zoom and the web and just the mechanism of having meetings online, right? And so being able to host your webinars on platforms like Zoom or Webinar Jam or whatever, the idea is just that people are used to consuming and interacting with one another in that way, which has opened up a tremendous opportunity for us as course creators, product creators, service providers, and business owners. And so let's dive in, man. I don't even want to take too much time because the content in and of itself is going to be heavy and it won't be a long one, but it will be a thorough one. Okay. And so mistake number one, and this is for all, shout out to all my smart people out there, right? I love y'all. But let me tell you something. If you get on your webinars over teaching, you will be underselling. Let me just say that one more time for y'all hard-headed ones. If you get on your webinars over teaching, you will be underselling. What does that mean? Over teaching and letting everybody know how smart you are and how great you are on a webinar is not the thing that's going to get them to buy your thing. Look, try me if you want to. Go out there and do it your way. And so for some of y'all that already did it that way, you like, I don't understand. I'm giving them all my sauce. Like, I'm teaching them stuff that nobody knows about, nobody talks about. Why aren't they buying? Because you're overwhelming them with all the content that you're sharing. My partner David always says, you can't teach a kid how to ride a bike in a seminar, right? Same is true. Whatever skill that you've acquired over the last decade, 2 decades, 3 decades, you're trying to take all of this wisdom, skill, and knowledge that you've acquired over an extrapolated period of time, and then you're trying to cram it into a 1 hour, 1.5 hour session. The people are overwhelmed. And guess what overwhelmed people don't do? Buy anything. They tired. They came to you to simplify their life. And all you did was just complicate it. Because they like, I don't even understand what half this stuff mean. Right? And you thinking you jamming because you like, oh yeah, I'm hitting them with the sauce. They're like, man, look, that ain't it. You know what I mean? Catch me when you got the easy button. I want the easy button. So I know some of you have already conflicted just by what I said. You like, well, B, so then if I'm not over teaching them, then what does that mean? I'm like, not giving them any value? Yes, you absolutely going to give them value. Okay? But you're going to have to do what's called reframe the value. So the value for most of us, if we don't understand what I'm telling y'all right now, which is $1 million worth of game, we perceive the value as teaching them as much as we can about our thing. But the truth is, we need to teach them the thing that prepares them to be able to learn our thing. What does that mean? Here's what that means. Everybody that gets onto your webinar already thinks something about the thing that you're supposed to be showing them. So let's just say in my case, okay, the webinar, the funnel that we built, the webinar funnel that we built was in the real estate space. People have a lot of limiting beliefs around being able to use other people's money, right? So although a part of my webinar was to show them how they can use other people's money, until I address the fact that they have limiting beliefs around using other people's money, I could never then later teach them how to use other people's money because they can't see beyond the barrier that they don't believe is possible. So you need to spend more time dealing with limiting beliefs, right? Because people will only behave consistently in what they believe. You have to help them to see a different perspective in order to have a different perspective in life, okay? So you gotta kill limiting beliefs. You gotta kill objections. What are the negative things that people think based on what society has showed them? Well, one of those things is, which I'm about to get into number 2, I'm stealing a little bit of my own thunder, but one of those things is that everybody get on a webinar to not teach people anything, right? Which is why it's counterintuitive what I'm telling you. And it's not that you're not teaching them something, but you have to teach them how to think differently if they're ever gonna be able to do anything differently. You gotta be able to teach them to think differently. You gotta think about it from this perspective. If they already thought the way that they should think, then they would have what they already desire to have. The whole reason why they're on a webinar with you to get your product, your service, or whatever that is because they need new perspective. So if you try to shove your new learning into their old perspective, that's like putting new wine in the old wineskins. That thing burst. Y'all picking up what I'm putting down so far? Okay. So that's a good segue into number 2. Okay. You don't address the elephant in the room. Mistake number 2 is that people don't address the elephant in the room. As I just mentioned about COVID, everybody knows now, right? Everybody been on a webinar, everybody been on a challenge, everybody been to a seminar by now. Like the jig is up. So people, because 90% of the stuff that's out there is garbage and 90% of the people teaching it are garbage, then the masses now believes that it's just all hokey. Like there's nothing that's tangible and of value gonna come out of these exchanges. So here's what happened. We know that as a presenter, as a creator, as a coach, as to whatever we are. But then we try to avoid that conversation that they're having in their mind. I'm going to say that one more time. We try to avoid the conversation that they're having in their mind. Well, why is that a problem? Well, it's a problem because just because you try to maneuver around it and act like it don't exist, it exists because they're thinking about it in their mind. So guess what happens? While they're thinking about that in their mind, they're not listening to what you're trying to put in their mind. Because that's a tab that's running in the background. You know how you have a bunch of tabs open in your computer and this stuff running? Like that's how it is in their brain. It's a tab running in the background that's distracting them from being fully present and immersed into this new information that you're trying to provide them. So what do? You don't be like everyone else. Why? Because you are somebody of integrity. You are somebody that's bringing tremendous value. And you don't need to hide behind the fact that everybody's thinking that you're probably just another scammer. So you need to get out in front of it. Hey, by the way, who in here has been to a webinar, a seminar, a challenge? Like who's attended one? Not only did you attend it, but who attended one where people pretended like they were going to teach you something and they were only trying to sell you something? Well, check this out. Guess what I'm not going to do? That. Why? Because I'm not some fly-by-night expert. I didn't learn this yesterday, regurgitating it to you tomorrow. I've embodied this over the last 20 years in whatever respective field that I'm in. I've helped people get X result, yada, yada, yada. Now watch this. Because this information that I'm going to share with you today is so valuable, there's going to be many of you that's not going to want the learning to stop. And for those people, at the end of this, I'm going to make an offer. And watch this, though. For those of you that don't want the offer, you won't take it. But for those of you that do, I got something for you. Is that fair? Now here's what I can guarantee. That everybody that came here is going to end up in a better situation than where they were when they got here. Is that fair? I just want to make sure that we all on the same. People appreciate honesty, man. Like trying to manipulate and act like it don't exist, you're doing only you a disservice. That you're gonna labor over this webinar for an hour, hour and a half. You're never gonna have their full attention, and that, as an end result, guess what that's gonna do? Your sales gonna suffer. And for those of y'all that's been doing it, you already know what I'm talking about. Mistake number 3: having too many words on your slides. Too many words on your slides. If they're reading your slides, they're not listening to you. And the funny part, so I know this all too true because I'm a slow reader. I'm an audiobook guy. I read with my ears. The only book I read like visually is the Bible. For different reasons. I'll explain that in a different video. But my point is, if you got a bunch of words on your slides, I don't care how pretty they are, I don't care what font you use, I don't care what backdrop you use. If they're reading your slides, they're not listening to you. The problem with that is the presentation doesn't convert the prospect, the presenter does. You are the magic in the presentation, not the words that's on the screen. And so what has to happen is you have to get to a point where you get prompts, right? You get prompts. So you see words in your presentation that causes you to say sentences as a response to a phrase that you see, or a response to a picture that you see, or a response to a word that you see. And I know some of y'all are freaking out already. You like, B, that sounds like a lot of work. Well, yeah. Making a lot of money could be. Serving your people at the highest level could be. Becoming a true expert of your craft and doing things with excellence could be. Because how is it working? With your slides, with almost word for word. You reading word for word off your slides. And you think that that's persuading someone to want to do something with you. No, that's just as boring as sitting in the classroom with that teacher reading word for word out that book. It's the same thing. Sales is persuasion. So it's helping someone see things differently, because if they already saw it from your perspective, they'd be doing it already. So sales, a webinar presentation, is a persuasion mechanism, not manipulation mechanism. Persuasion. See, if I'm trying to convince you to do something, that's to my benefit. If I'm helping to persuade you to do something, it's to your benefit. Because you need a persuasive thought to help you see it from a different side. Because if you see it from a different side and you believe it now differently, then you will behave now differently. But we all just lack perspective in whatever aspect of life. If 6 of us were sitting around a tree, we're looking at the same tree, but we're all seeing it from a different angle. So that's what your job is as a presenter on a webinar, is to help them to see from a different angle, the angle that best benefits them in their life based on the decisions that they make. Okay? So here's the thing. For those of you that's freaking out because I said that you need to have less words on you, like, what if I forget what I'm supposed to say right here? What if I forget this point? I really want to say that point. Mistake number 4. You don't practice enough. This $1 million funnel that we built, this one particular webinar, I did it live. Probably close to 60 times, the webinar. Same webinar. Iterated here and there, but same webinar. Which, by the way, that experience forever changed my communication. My communication level went from here to I don't even know where, honestly. Like, I started to have different speaking engagements where I would get in front of a live room, and I didn't realize just how much better I had gotten from doing a virtual webinar that many times live, right? Now, in addition to doing it 60 times live, watch this. I did at least one run through for the first 40 times that I executed it. Now, you got to be some kind of crazy to do something, to practice something 40 times into doing it. But here's why I do that. Because amateurs practice until they get it right. Professionals practice until they can't get it wrong. I'm the guy. See, a lot of the time, the reason why our nerves get the best of us is because we haven't prepared enough. Now, it's not that I don't have nerves when I do certain speaking engagements or presentations, But I practice that thing in such a way that if all hell break loose, I still know what I'm supposed to be talking about. And I've had it happen. I've went on stage and I've seen the clicker work well for the first three people. And as soon as I get up there, that thing going from slide 1 to slide 3 to slide 13, back to slide. I'm like, what is going on? But I'm not panicking because the slides are there for them to keep up with what I'm talking about. I've done it so much that I almost remember it word for word without even having to need the presentation anymore. Amateurs practice until they get it right. Professionals practice until they can't get it wrong. I did that webinar in such a way where it didn't matter if I was on the road, if I had to do it from the airport, if I had to leave from a certain setting and go jump into my hotel room. It didn't matter, right? So one of the best things you could do for yourself and for those that you're serving, because here's the other part, they're people. And every week that we did it, there were different people in the room. So if you also engage your audience correctly and you don't just sit there and lecture them the whole time and you're pulling them into your presentation, they're going to say certain things in the chat that will prompt you to say certain things. But if you so married to the presentation, if you handcuffed to the presentation, then that's going to disallow you to fully engage with the audience the way that you should. You picking up what I'm putting down? So if you get your presentation dialed in such a way to where you know that by default, then somebody may say something that prompts you to think of a story that got nothing to do with what you put in the presentation, but it has everything to do with answering a thought or an objection of that individual who could potentially become your client because of all the stuff you're talking about. This is what they're thinking about. And guess what's the most important thing to answer? Not what you're talking about, but what they're thinking about. And you're only going to do that if you put yourself in a position where you practice this thing until you can't get it wrong to allow you to really adhere to the people and serve them at a high level. Okay. By the way, just put some flames in the comments if this is making sense to you. Okay. And if you listen to this on audio, share this. I mean, look, I'm being generous right now. Yes or yes. I'm giving y'all the game on how to avoid losing hundreds of thousands of dollars potentially with bad marketing companies and bad webinar frameworks. And I'm telling you exactly what not to do so that you can get to $1 million webinar as I did. So if this is helpful to you, all I ask is that you share it, right? We gotta sow and reap. Mistake number five. Okay, mistake number 5. You don't have enough pre-frames in your presentation. Now I know you like, B, what's a pre-frame? Okay. So a pre-frame is simply this. It's a phrase or a sentence that it sets the tone for what we're going to say next. Okay, so let me say it this way. What I say first impacts how you receive what I say next. So that's a pre-frame. What I say first impacts how you receive what I say next. Okay? Now, so a pre-frame is simply a way to persuade them to help them to see and believe another point of view. Now, on every webinar, there's some type of offer, whether it's book a call, whether it's sign up for this, whether it's buy my course, whether it's join my program, whatever it is. There's a call to action. And for many of those call to actions, there's going to be a price point involved. Now, price is only an issue in the absence of value. I'm going to make a whole nother video about that, okay, because I want to keep this one concise. But in the absence of value, everything is too expensive. So it don't matter if your offer is $97. Just because it seems inexpensive, price in the absence of value is always expensive. Okay, so there's always going to be somebody who don't perceive the value that you displayed as warranted to buy the thing. It don't matter how cheap it is. Okay, which by the way is a big issue for those of you that think I'm just going to keep pricing my stuff cheaper and people going to buy it. That's not, you attracting the wrong client, because only broke people ask how much something costs. Rich and wealthy people ask, what is it worth? So if your race to the bottom to attract more people that can buy your stuff, those are cheap and broke-minded people. Because a rich and wealthy person would look at that and say, that seemed too cheap. Maybe the value not there. They're focused on value, not price. Okay? Why is that important? It's important because at the end of your presentation, you're going to be making an offer. And one of the most common responses to an offer can and will be, I can't afford it. Yeah, oh man, I love everything. I just wish I can't afford it. So this is where you use a pre-frame before you even get to the point of making an offer. Okay? So a good pre-frame, remember, a pre-frame is what I say first will impact how you feel about what I say next. So if I know at the end of this presentation there's going to be people that say to me, I can't afford it, then way before that ever happens, I'm going to talk about what they're going to be thinking about. Now watch this. This is where you got to pay very close attention. This show $1 million hack right here. So I will use a pre-frame to help them to have a different perspective. How do I do that? By talking to them about stuff that is real. So who here has ever bought something that they couldn't afford before? This is way early in the presentation, right? I'm just making a point. I'm just curious. Who here has ever bought something that they couldn't afford before? Most people will be truthful, okay? But then just to catch some stragglers that's still out there that refuse to participate and say me. Okay, if you've ever used a credit card in your life, you've bought something that you couldn't afford, yes or yes, right? If we use a credit card, we bought it in advance of having the money to pay for it. So after everybody agrees that they bought something that they couldn't afford, right? Whether it been for vacation, a birthday, whatever, right? Christmas, Valentine's Day, we went and swiped the card because we perceived the gratification behind making this purchase was worthy of us putting ourselves in an uncomfortable financial position to do so. Yes or yes? See, we all bought something we couldn't afford at some point in our life, right? Which is just to further the point that price is only an issue in the absence of value. It didn't matter what it cost us in that moment because the value and the perceived value of how we were going to feel or whomever benefited from it was going to feel that we swiped the card even though we didn't have the finances. Now watch this. What we say first changes the way we feel about what is said next. So I said that way earlier in the presentation, right? Just to make a point, but I planted a seed. So when it comes down to a point where you make your offer after that, don't you think it'd be really difficult for somebody just to say, I can't afford it? They will be forced to think about what you said first earlier in the presentation, and they agreed that they've all bought something that they couldn't afford, which is true for all of us. This is what I mean by having people have a perspective shift. A lot of the time, the biggest barrier for people to do great things in life is just how they currently view the things that they've done in life. Everybody buys things that they can't afford, but for all the wrong reasons. Typically for liabilities, typically for more debt, typically for consumerism. When they face with opportunity for expansion, because they don't see the instant gratification from that purchase, they say they can't afford it. When the truth is they can't afford not to. Because the way that they've been doing it is responsible for everything that they have in life. And if they want something different in life, then they got to do something different in life. Is this making sense? Okay. Put your credit cards up. I know y'all about ready to buy something for me right now. Not yet. Okay, not yet. Maybe some of y'all will get a chance to. So here's the bonus, okay? I said I had 5, but I got a bonus. Let me run back through real quick. I know we covered a lot. So mistake number 1, over-teaching, okay? Got to stop over-teaching on your webinars. Mistake number 2, you don't address the elephant in the room. We got to make sure that we talk about the things that they're thinking about. Don't hide behind that. Number 3, you got too many words on your slides. Less is more. And how you going to do that? Because you're not going to mistake number 4 and don't practice enough. You got to run your reps, man. Never take for granted that you're good enough. And number 5, you don't have enough pre-frames. By the time you make your offer and they tell you they can't afford it, anything you say after that, when you don't answer an objection early in your presentation, by the time that it gets later in your presentation, that's called a confrontation. And guess what? Nobody buying when it's confrontational. Nobody buying when they got to justify and explain to you what they meant by what they meant. You got to handle your pre-frames up front, okay? Like we teach our coaching clients this. It would change the game forever for your life and for your business. Trust me when I tell you. And people appreciate it. They need help seeing their life different, okay? What I'm telling you ain't game, like in the term of, like in the form of manipulation. It's called skill. All the greats do what I'm telling you about because in order for us to help people, we have to understand people. And if we work with human behavior, then we're going to be in a good situation. If we work against human behavior, not so much. It's just psychology, okay? So here's your bonus. Get a framework for your webinar. So many of y'all out there right now have no idea what y'all are doing in terms of your webinar. I love y'all. I'm just being honest. We see it because we help people every day inside of our coaching program where we teach people how to go from making 6 figures a year to 6 figures in a month and even 6 figures in a day. Yes, we've had clients that make 6 figures in a day in their business, their coaching business, they're expert at something, or they're a consultant of some sort. And we show them how to build out this system, this webinar, amongst other iterations and variations to achieve such goals, okay, while serving their clients at the highest level. One of our models, we basically show you how to work a little bit over 100 days a year to make 7 figures a year, right? So this is my bonus framework for you, okay? My bonus for you. Get a framework that works. Stop guessing about what type of webinar you like. If you created your webinar, then just I'm gonna let you know right now, you're not gonna make $1 million from it. I'm not even being funny with y'all. I spent hundreds of thousands of dollars over the years to figure out that don't work. Okay. There's a proven method out there for high converting webinars. If you haven't done $1 million from your webinar funnel yet, then you need to go find a model to help you do so. That's the hack. You're wasting time and money anyway. Go spend the money so you ain't got to waste the time, and you will make a lot more money as a result of it. And again, if this was helpful to you, all I ask that you share this with somebody that you love. I don't know when this is going to drop, but if y'all want to learn how to build out a 6 to 7 figure business using webinars and all these various things that we teach, come to it 1 hour challenge, Purpose to Profits challenge. We show you how to make meaningful money in a major way. The link will be in the description, okay, if we got one upcoming at the time in which I record this, okay. Y'all like this today? Let me know. Matter of fact, let me know in the comments if y'all want me to show y'all more tactical, strategic stuff like this where y'all can go out and make a bunch of money. If not, I could just not. Y'all let me know. Till next time.